Blessed is the kingdom of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, now and ever, and unto ages of ages.
On the 4th of February 2023, we entered again into the Turkish-occupied side of Cyprus. Our first stop would be Father Panayotis' village, Marathovounos, where he grew up and from where he and his family fled in 1974 during the island's invasion. After passing the checkpoint in Kyrenia, we made our way past Amochostos, or Famagusta, and the ghost town of Varosha, and headed west to the central plains of the island known as Messauria. Father Panayotis has only returned to his hometown Marathovounos twice since 1974. Each time he brought a group with him, to show people the devastation and desecration which came during the invasion. This is his third visit. Across from the church now stands a new mosque. The village originally had only Christians, and now has been Muslimized. His ancestral home no longer exists. The village has changed a lot since they left when he was 17. Part of the town was demolished entirely, and most of it was turned into a military base of the Turkish army. This military base conveniently includes the town church, dedicated to Prophet Elijah, now surrounded by barbed wire, and entrance to it is forbidden. The dome was hit with mortar during the Turkish bombardment, and it fell in. The holy icons and other sacred items were stolen or thrown into the streets by the invaders. This is where Father was baptized and took his first steps on his journey to Christ. This place is incredibly special to him. As we walked around the church, dark clouds formed, and light rain began to fall. The weather seemed to reflect what we felt in our hearts. We continued to film for a while and take pictures of the ruined church. But suddenly 2 Turkish soldiers appeared from behind barbed wire and began to move towards us with their M16s. We backed off and stopped filming. We knew it was time to leave. Even after so many years, the wound never heals. One of God's holy places was lying in front of us, abandoned and desecrated, and we were forbidden to even come close to it. The small building behind the church was used as classrooms by the town's elementary school. Father Panayotis spent his 3rd and 4th grade years in these classrooms. We slowly returned to our car and headed north to the village cemetery. Here lie hundreds of Orthodox Christians. All the crosses from the graves had been removed, broken, and dumped in a pile where the small chapel of the cemetery stood. The desecrated graves of Christian people, many of whom we are directly related to, are now hidden under the overgrown thorny bushes and foliage. We made our way around to the west wall to the spot where Father Panayotis remembers that the graves of the priests were. Among them is his grandfather, Father George, from whom we receive our family name, Papageorgiou, which means of Father George. Father George was the priest of Marathovunos for more than 30 years.
Θεός των πνευμάτων και σαρκός των θάνατων καταπατήσας, των δε διάβολων καταργήσας και ζωή του τόμου σε δωρησάμνους. Αυτός, Κύριε, ανάπαυση και την ψυχή του κεκτημένου σου Γεωργίου ιερέως στον τόπο φωτεινό, τον χλωρό, τον παραψύξιος, εν θα απέδρα οδύνη λύπη και αστυναγμός. Πάνω μάρτωμα αυτό πραχθένε λόγο η έργο διανία, σε αθώος και φιλάνθρωπος, συγχώρησουν. Ότι ουκέ στην άνθρωπο ζήσει δικαιού χαμαρτίες, εσύ γαρμόνος, Κύριε, τόσο μαρτίες υπάρχεις, η δικαιοσύνη σου, η δικαιοσύνη στον αιώνα και νόμο σου αλήθεια. Του Κυρίου δεηθόμεν, ότι εσύ Ανάσταση, η ζωή και η μακαρία ανάπαυση του κείμενου δούλου σου Γεωργίου ιερέως, Χριστέ ο Θεός ημών και στην δόξα να αναπέμπαμε στην τον Άρχα σου Πατρί και τον Παναγίο και αγαθό και στον Υιό σου πνεύματι, νυν και αεί και εις τους αιώνας των αιώνων. Αιωνία σου μνήμη εξομακάριστη και εμνήστευε που ημών. Αιωνία σου μνήμη εξομακάριστη και εμνήστευε που ημών. Αιωνία σου μνήμη εξομακάριστη και εμνήστευε που ημών. Αιωνία η μνήμη, αιωνία αυτού η μνήμη, αιωνία η μνήμη, αιωνία η μνήμη, αιωνία αυτού η μνήμη. Διευχών των Αγίων Πατέρων ημών, Κύριε Ιησού Χριστέ ο Θεός, αλέξον και σώσον ημάς. Αμήν. Και είναι η μνήμη πάντων των θνεόντων και αναπαυσαμένων εν το κημητήριο τούτο, όν το ονόματα συγγνώσκης και υπερπάντων ημών. Αμήν.
We took one last look at the village. This is a deeply personal place for us. Even for me, who never lived here and was born decades after the invasion, it feels like my long-lost homeland. I've only been here twice, yet my heart yearns to return here. But this will be my last time. I won't be returning to Marathovunos for many years, if not indefinitely. We also want to remind you that the cemeteries of hundreds of villages throughout the occupied side of Cyprus received the same treatment till today. The conquerors leave them this way as a symbol of their triumph. It makes us sick. And with hearts full of sorrow, we departed our beloved Marathovunos. I can only imagine how Father Panayotis feels. The worst day in his life was when this land was ripped away from him. Cypriots are very close to their land. For them, their villages and of course their churches are sacred and special places. the Cypriot heart still bleeds with no end in sight. Then we drove past the occupied part of Lefkosia, or Nicosia in English, which is the capital of Cyprus, and headed towards the mountain range of Pentadactylos to reach the harbor city of Kyrenia. On our way, we passed by the giant Turkish Cypriot flags placed on the side of Pentadactylos. These are incredibly visible on the free side of the island, and are a constant reminder of the occupation. Here we must note that the so-called Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus is not recognized by any nation except for Turkey. At the top of the passway through the mountain, suddenly we noticed a sign pointing to Saint Hilarion's castle and church. And immediately we turned in that direction. We had never been there before, and now was the opportunity to visit. We were amazed to find ourselves in front of one of the most stunning and unique places we have ever seen in Cyprus. I personally didn't even know this place existed until that day. It sits on top of the highest peak overlooking the entire northern beach of Kyrenia. In ancient times, this was a very strategic location, and it still seems essential, as the Turks have a military base nearby. The first written reference to the castle is apparently from the 12th century, mentioned as an Eastern Roman fortification and monastery dedicated to Saint Hilarion. Later, it was occupied by Western European conquerors, the Crusaders, Franks, and Venetians, and still bears their marks. This was once the central church of the monastery. You can see Father Panayotis venerating the place where the altar table once stood. Who knows what happened to it after the invasion? This region has a history that stretches back thousands of years to the Phoenicians, Greeks, and indigenous Cypriots. In the 10th century BC, Greek colonists arrived here from the Peloponnese and named the settlement Kyrenia after an already existing city in southern Greece. However, some ancient sources state that the city was of Phoenician origin. Kyrenia later flourished under Roman rule as an essential trading port, and Christianity would also find fertile ground here. The Arabs would try to lay claim and raid the island over the centuries, but the Eastern Roman Empire would ultimately lose control to the Crusaders at the end of the 12th century, along with the rest of the island. From the northern balconies, right below us, we can see the Karavas beach. This is where the Turkish troops landed in July 20th, 1974, ultimately occupying 37% of the island, and Kyrenia became the base of operations for the invading force. We parked in the city's center and made our way over to the ancient harbor. Although the town was beautiful, we felt unsettled. Something wasn't right. We couldn't fully enjoy Kyrenia because it was under foreign occupation. And so one of us said, "Let's get out of here." And we left. We returned to our car and headed for our final destination of the day, the village of Bellapais and its church known as Bellapais Abbey. The village of Bellapais is situated on the northern hillside of Pentadactylos mountain, just a few miles outside of Kyrenia. Originally, it was called Episkopia, which implies that it was the seat of the Orthodox Bishop of Kyrenia. Later, when Europeans conquered Cyprus, this area was inhabited by a Latin religious order known as the Canons Regular of the Holy Sepulchre. This order fled the Holy Land after Saladin the Sultan conquered Jerusalem from the Crusaders in 1187. The current structure is dated to the 12 and 1300s and was constructed by Venetian rulers as a castle and a Latin monastery. After the Ottomans captured Cyprus in 1571, the Latins were expelled and the monastery became an Orthodox church, serving as the village parish until the Turkish invasion of 1974. But today the village is inhabited only by Muslims. To enter Bellapais Abbey, you must pay an admission fee. It is technically a museum, but the Turks allow Orthodox priests free entry to holy temples. At least they give us that much. We entered the temple and thanked God that this ancient and holy place was not desecrated like many others. Also, I suspect that the Bishop of Kyrenia, in exile, must do yearly liturgies here. The interior seems well maintained and not desecrated. This is usually the practice with historic churches. Then we spent some time visiting the ancient monastery grounds. The view of the northern coast of Cyprus from here is stunning. The beauty of this place captivated our hearts and brought us joy. The sun was setting and we had a long drive back to Agia Napa. The day left us with a bittersweet feeling. We were moved by how beautiful our island is, but also deeply wounded by the fact that it sits unjustly occupied. So we set off, climbing slowly in our small car over the Pentadactylos mountain and headed south to the free parts of Cyprus.